Meta Perspective Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Meta Perspective Podcast. We're your hosts, Alex,
Evan,
and the girl. This is the show where we talk about deep and interesting topics and try to get to the heart of the concept through different ideas.
if you are joining for the first time, please give the channel and the video a like and a subscribe. We do grant random giveaways, things like that, so it doesn't hurt to stay active.
Speaking of staying active, don't forget to jump in that chat because you are as much of this conversation as we are. Because obviously Meta Perspective Podcast is not meta
Without your perspective.
Speaking of perspectives, what are we getting into tonight?
Tonight we're going to talk about the psychospiritual coping that we see kind of, just in general within the society. People claiming to be spiritual, maybe not necessarily understanding what that means. I think there's kind of a spiritual vacuum that's been created where people are rejecting the idea of uniform religion, but at the same time, there's this kind of spiritual push, and a lot of it's kind of like astrology and things like this, but like without a moral foundation, a lot of these people actually don't find themselves to be happy, productive people, and not the type of thing that you would expect to result from living a spiritual life. And there's some pitfalls in all of it, and we're just going to kind of discuss the discrepancy there.
So you're saying the girl you work with who smells like incense covered in crystals isn't actually spiritually happy?
Well, yeah, she well, she might be spiritual, but she's probably not happy. And there's a reason for that.
Well, the crystals prove that. If you have rocks, you've ascended to another dimension.
I mean, yeah, the vibrations.
Rocks aren't from here.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of like, there exists a discrepancy there because, in a lot of ways, kind of people have shunned the idea of, Christianity or uniform religion, and at least in Western society. And, at the same time, you have people that are kind of forming this like pseudo-spiritual, it's not a cult or something like that. It's just an idea. But those, that in itself, without some type of moral foundation, basically allows people to just do whatever they want. And, without accepting the consequences of their wrongdoings, at the same time claiming spirituality, it kind of psychologically absolves them from the responsibility to behave in a moral way, because there's no like spiritual consequences, or there's no religious or moral backed repercussion to their actions. So you have people that claim to be spiritual, but then they'll go out and do terrible things, and then the next day they feel bad about it, but they can't understand why, because there's no context there.
No, it makes sense, especially, growing up, the idea of spirituality and a spiritual person typically is somebody who's religious. So I do find it interesting how many people are, reject religion. And I don't mean like uniform religion, like just jumping into just like mass group think, but like your own kind of curiosity to want to understand it. I find it interesting of how many people went from the, I don't know what's out there, I'm not really asking questions, I don't care, but I don't really believe in anything.
Like agnostic kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and then turn to the spiritual side without looking or reading any of the books written about the spiritual concept. Like, I mean, the Bible, the Quran,
Torah.
the Torah. I mean, every religion from the Buddhists. I mean, like all of them have writings on how to attain an aspect of yourself outside of this physical world, which you would call the spiritual world. So I have found it really interesting how many people went to the spiritual side and claim the spiritual side and sometimes even practice aspects of the spiritual side without looking into any of the writings explaining it. Again, it's an obvious assumption, an obvious come to, like, oh, I don't have to be a part of any group, but I am curious about what they're talking about now that I understand spirituality and I'm a spiritual person. I'm interested to see what they are talking about because it's the same thing that I've now adapted. Blows my mind how many people are like, I reject all of that. It's like, but you're a spiritual person.
Yeah.
What's your foundation?
Well, there's three things here. There's three factors at play in any religion that you could draw to. It doesn't have to be Christianity. Any of them,
They all talk about
monotheist
spirituality.
religions,
Yeah.
and even like Buddhism, stuff like that. There is the belief in a higher power. But what you would call God or what we call God doesn't necessarily have to be, the Christian God. It could be the Muslim God or the Jewish God or, the pantheon of Zeus and Poseidon. It's the idea of believing in a higher power. So that's one. And then two is some kind of moral foundation. All religions have them. Don't steal. Don't. There are moral foundations and consequences for doing good and bad, and the idea of evil or against good. And then thirdly, it would be the idea of some type of prescription for the afterlife. The idea of heaven or, like a reincarnation. Something happens to you after you die, your spirit continues. So that these three factors exist in pretty much all major religions. Every religion, essentially. But the idea...
Even Scientology has aliens coming to pick you up when this ends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's something to explain the higher power, the creation aspect, or at least the purpose. There's something to explain how you behave here on Earth, and there's something to explain what happens to you after you die.
Yeah, like their foundation is your money. Yeah.
So all these things are...
I'm sorry for your Scientologists. It was a joke.
You buy your way to heaven.
Yeah. It was
Or to alien Zarnak or whatever it is.
What's the difference?
But so those things are all consistent throughout all religions and pretty much, throughout measurable time and spirituality throughout human history has had these finite things, because if you don't believe in a higher power, you're not going to follow the rules. And if you don't follow the rules, then you're going to be a shitty person. Your society collapses. And people that follow the rules and believe in a higher power, they want to know that there's something after life, where the reason why they follow these doctrines and the reason why they believe in this thing is to get somewhere and continue on. The spirit, that's the idea. So we have spirit. We're not just chemical, molecule compounds forming together to sustain life for 80 years and then we disappear. So these people who are now, claim to be spiritual, they don't believe in any of that. They maybe dabble in the existence of a higher power, but also other powers like spirit, good spirits, dark spirits, spirits in general, astral projection, things like that don't necessarily conflict with that, but it's not necessarily a belief in one higher power, like a monotheist God or some type of entity outside of ourselves that controls the spirit or at least guides the spirit or allows it to exist. And at the same time, probably the most detrimental is that they don't necessarily follow the fundamental morality that's laid out by all religions. So in this way, a spiritual person can commit sins or whatever wrongdoings and not feel bad about it because there's nothing to tell them that what they're doing is wrong and you should not do that, because the consequences are apparent. They do something bad, consequences happen, but there's no foundation for them to totally understand that and grasp the reality of the consequences of their actions. And then finally, most spiritual people don't believe in the concept of an afterlife, or they're not set in what that means, and they don't necessarily all fall into one idea of, when I die, this will happen, and I believe this. It's kind of a question thing. It's an agnostic thing where I don't know. It's like it doesn't really, it's not nailed down. So I think those three factors in a spiritual person nowadays create the storm for an unhappy life. And even though you can be claim to be spiritual, you're actually only scratching the surface of what that means.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think I think that's a huge aspect, is like you said, the foundation. A lot of spiritual people, it's funny because without the foundation, saying you're spiritual and then just advertising yourself the way you want to be advertised, going to nonstop, like festivals, doing different drugs that you think make you more spiritual, this kind of life pattern. It's funny because it's almost more physical than just a physical person, because I'm getting a taste of these other dimensions through all these drugs and all this stuff and everything going on, but I'm not curious enough to try to understand it or figure it out. So therefore, there's no foundation. Or maybe they do it and it's so ambiguous because it's like a shadow jumping into a three-dimensional body. It's like, I don't know what any of this means. Us either. But it's like, I don't know what any of this means. It's kind of the same thing. If somebody like does hallucinogens, they're like, whoa, like I understand like everything's connected. Okay, explain it to me. Well, everything's connected. In what way can you explain it to where it makes sense other than just the statement? How can you back it up? They're like, I don't know. It was like a place of being. Okay, why can't you explain it to me now? Because I'm not there now. So you're only spiritual under the influence of drugs. And even then, you really don't understand it. It's like there's not a foundation. So to sit there and say, I'm just going to have, my life motto is I'm going to have fun. It's all just about me. I'm just going to go to festivals, do whatever I want to do, no consequences. It really seems like even a physical person will set boundaries, understand that there may be consequences. So it almost seems like to say you're spiritual is an out. It's like I'm not accountable for my physical actions because I'm a spiritual person, which means within this other realm, essentially, because I've experienced it and couldn't make sense of it, everything's connected and pointless. So the meaning of life is just enjoy life. So if I do whatever I want to do as a spiritual person, I'm now justified. While the person over there who's not spiritual thinks that if they take a negative, tone with their boss, even if they're right, that it may come back on them. So maybe they should just lay low. People are like, no, you should stand up for yourself. Okay, well, the spiritual person got fired. It's like,
yeah.
I'm just saying in practical, realistic, like in any way that you could apply a belief system to your life to improve your life, the only things that really improve your life are boundaries. Show me one kid whose parents were like, eat whatever you want, watch whatever you want, do whatever you want. You don't want to go to bed? That's fine. We won't push it. You don't brush your teeth? That's fine. Show me a kid that does whatever they want, that didn't have boundaries, that turned out better. The kids that accomplish, on average, the kids that accomplish the most, and we can talk about the underdogs, but the kids that accomplished the most and had the best drive and the best attitude consistently from beginning to end are the people who had parents that taught them boundaries and taught them to respect boundaries. So that when a kid says, oh, I can't do it this way, it's because they respect the process. And it's, okay, I could do it that way, but it could create issues and tension between me and my buddy because I'd kind of be stepping on his toes to do this. The right way would be to go to talk to him and let all of this work out naturally in a process. That's more spiritual than anything. But if I'm spiritual, I'm like, well, it came to me. I know this could affect him, but this is my journey. It's like, it's selfish. I'm fixated on myself. Don't care how this affects you. We'll work it out if it's meant to be. If we can't work it out, it's because you're not meant for this journey I'm on. It's like, that's wildly selfish and egotistical. It's like,
Well, that's it right there. It's egotistical, and then that's kind of the psychology aspect of this. Is that, to convince yourself that, because your sense of self is essentially your ego, and it wants to survive. It wants to feel like you are who you are, and your personality and everything exists, and it's this self persona that you have to perpetuate in order to feel real, or to be to be observed and to feel like you exist, essentially. But that's really what it is. It's the ego allowed to run wild in this case, where you can kind of do whatever you want, and in the back of your head you're not really accepting the consequences, because what you want is what you want, and
it's almost like a loophole to say, well, I'm spiritual, so my intentions going into this are good, therefore it's justified. It's like, because you refuse to see the full picture and how this could affect other people, because it's something you want, and you have trained your mind to say spirituality means everything within me and nothing outside. I'm connected to everything in this world, but it's all in me. There's no foundation to say, hey, spirituality is based through blank. So therefore, through that, you're able to help and share. There's no foundation. It's just, it's good and bad. And if you think about good while you're doing stuff, then anything can be good. And it's like, well, that's a wild way to live life, because it's a house of cards. Like, there's no way that you could live your life like that and become a respectable, functioning adult. Because again, I could love myself, but if other people don't respect me, I can't respect them. So it's the same idea. You could say, well, I'm all about good energy and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But do you think about the energy going towards you? Does that not matter? If you walk through life and you're like, everything's just my world. Okay, well, we've seen how other people have lived life like that. Hitler lived life like that. He's like, I'm a painter. I'm this. I'm helping.
Hitler bad, by the way.
Hitler bad. But a lot of people were like, we're going to stop you. You can scare people in, so you can do whatever you want. But because you say something is a certain way does not mean, like, if you have an inherent backlash of everybody saying this is bad, there is a foundation of good and evil. That's a foundation. Otherwise, you could just convince everybody that what you're doing is good. You could say that's what he did, but the world turned on him, and most of the people following were scared. And it was a small group that were just excited, that were like, we're about this. We've been waiting to just murder. It's like, well, that's evil. Like, there has to be a definition. If there's no definition, then to just say, like, as long as I'm happy and I have good intentions, then anything I do is good and I'm absolved.
Yeah.
It's
not necessarily like, I've met a lot of people who are spiritual, and I don't necessarily know all of their backgrounds just when I meet them, but like, like the deadhead kind of people, the hippies that you meet at concerts or whatever, that's like, they're really nice to you. They offer things to you or whatever. And that's fine. But, are those people really happy? Like, do they have something to look for to why?
Or are they even good people?
Yeah.
If I'm a bad person, I want to take advantage of dumb good people. Could I not go to a festival, pose as a good person, and just be like, here's free stuff, here's free this, and blah blah blah. You could lace people's stuff. You're just giving out free stuff, and people are, it's all about good vibes, and I have good intentions, and this is love and sharing. So like, yeah, I'll take one of these. Next thing you know, the person's passed out 5 minutes later. Well, it's like, there has to be an understanding that in a world of good and evil, if you just have good intention and stay good, you can't just say that bad isn't going to target you, or I have good intentions, therefore bad can't target me. It's like,
Right. Then you're going to get taken advantage of.
because for you to be like, because I know a lot of spiritual people, and that's kind of the mentality. The
But they're not
framework is
all bad, you
but
know,
the
and-
framework is kind of like, I look at everybody with love. Okay, then if I fake happiness, you'll feel bad if you judge me and you're like, I don't think he's sincere. You won't do that. You'll assume I'm sincere until I show you I'm not. And that's the problem, is it opens you up for bad situations. Even if it's like, yeah, I'll help you because I love you. And the person's like, yeah, I know. That's why I'm not going to pay you this money back. Thanks for $50. We didn't even talk. Thanks. You know, it's like, you can't just, you have to have more of a foundation, more of a worth to spirituality, other than just, well, I was unhappy and now I realize I can just focus on being happy. Therefore, I'm spiritual and we're all connected and I get it now. It's like, well, that's just you understanding life a little better, but you're still acting in a physical way, focused on emotion and trying to think about positive things, law of attraction. Like, that's not spiritual. That's just a physical human being and how you work.
Yeah.
So the spiritual is the aspect of what holds all of this that we're doing together. You know, the outside stuff. When we talk about other dimensions, when we talk about quantum physics, like, you know, it's like even the spiritualists will be like, you know, everything's connected. How? It's connected through something outside of here. So your framework for spirituality can't just exist within your mind and your emotions and your wants, because your direction and your drive is the same as it was before, only now you're like, oh, I'm not going to focus on negative stuff. Because again, you could focus on terrible things and just lead yourself into anger all the time. You could do all the exact same stuff, but with the things that make you unhappy instead of happy. And you're really just doing the exact same thing in a different way. It's not spiritual. It's just a life change. You can be fat. You can work out and be in shape. You know, you can be happy. You can be sad. You know, your spirituality to me is a deeper connection to the framework, which in order to have any type of connection to the framework of all this, you have to have a foundation.
Yeah.
You have to have a building block.
Well, that's the interesting thing about this too, is because, you know, there's been a real push, you know, throughout society, a psychological push, I'd say, where a lot of these people are in this place of spirituality because they've, for the most part, rejected the idea of any uniform religion, which, you know, a lot of people go down that path. Maybe they find religion later. That's okay. You know, everyone has their own journey, but to full on reject it and not really know why you're rejecting it, but at the same time cling to this spiritual idea willingly, it's like you're missing the connection between what the religious teachings are and what you're claiming to be spiritual are. They are pretty much one and the same. You know, like you mentioned the foundation. It's like, well, okay, you don't have the foundation. Okay, well, you're not, you know, we talked about maybe the afterlife or some type of, you know, existence beyond the physical world. It's like, all right, well, you're ignoring all that. So you end up with less meaning, less purpose, less direction, and almost a hole is created where it just gets filled by your egotistical wants and needs. And while you might be nice to somebody, you might help other people out because we're all connected and it's the good thing to do. It's not going to benefit you in the way that, you know, doing it from a religiously backed way could necessarily. Because, I mean, while it can benefit you, it can make you happy, you know, there's this general rejection of the idea of this uniform religion. And why is that? And it's, you know, this has probably been pushed on us from atheism and things like that. For a while in history, people tried to disprove God and everyone kind of fell off of the idea of it. And then now it's starting to come back, and we're starting to even use science to kind of prove that these things aren't explainable. So you almost see a rebound, and I don't know if those things are tied, but they correlate somewhat. But there's still in the spiritual community, there's still this rejection of the same exact type of way to live your life that religion teaches, except for whatever reason they're not willing to accept, they're not willing to bridge that gap.
Now, I think a lot of it too is what they see, which again, we all know the Bible's like, do not follow man. So everybody's like, well, I'm not going to follow the Bible because the people in church that follow your Bible are bad. Okay, well, remember my first rule, the one I said earlier. Don't follow man, but they're not, I don't see you in them. Okay, I'm not going to say this again. Follow me. But they're following you, and don't follow them, follow me. I don't know how to explain this. They should not be in the conversation. That's I think what the heart of the problem is a lot of people see spiritual people in religion, and they're like, well, they're judgmental. I can be spiritual and non-judgmental, and it's the same thing. It's still atheism. I'm going to prove to them that their religion's wrong. They can essentially be their own God, and as long as you live your life a certain way, you're doing the same thing. And it's like, you're really not, because at the heart of the spirituality movement, what I hear the most, what the heart of it is it's not, like, even if there's an idea of God, it's not something that you put thought into. It's not something you try to figure out. You're just like, there's a thing. But what that thing is could also be me. It's like, it's literally so ambiguous. It's like, I mean, it's still atheism. But instead of like, I don't believe in a God, it's like, no, there is one. I just couldn't tell you what it is because it could be anything, including maybe even me. It's like, okay, so you went from there is no God to God could be anything. So you're not going to try to figure out what that thing could be if you came to the conclusion there could be a God. So it starts this cycle of basically believing that your highest self is essentially the religion of the spiritual movement. Is like the point is trying to reach your highest self. My biggest issue with that is if you have no foundation, what is your highest self? Because going to festivals nonstop, doing drugs nonstop, sleeping around nonstop.
It's your highest self.
Yeah, it's like none of this stuff is going to lead you to a higher self. If anything, it's going to lead you to Jesus, repentance, and then you'll be like, oh my God, I'm forgiven of my sins. I've never felt so loved and happy and at peace, and oh, I'm at my highest self, despite the way I was living. It's like that stuff is actually what caused me to need to fix myself. Yeah. That's what I see the most. Well, is not people who find a type of religion and spirituality, but of people who end up running to religion because of spirituality. Because it's the same thing as like, if you have nothing, you'll end up being kind of empty and sad, looking for something.
Right.
But if you're spiritual, it's basically like, you don't have to look for anything. Now you can just be happy and power through it, which does, in my opinion, so much more damage. Because before you have this like, you have your conscience saying, hey, there's right and wrong. And then after a while, you're like, no, I figured it out. I can reprogram myself to where, with good intentions, it's all right. As long as I have a good heart going into it. And it's like, that's so fucking simple to life. Like, just because you're like, oh, I have a good heart going into this, so I'm not going to actually judge the situation, try to connect with this person, try to understand them. I'm just going to give this man $20 because I'm a good person. He overdosed on heroin that night. Whoops, I killed someone. It's like there's no further reach where you can go, I want to do something better than give you $20. Can I take you to lunch? And then take that person to a place, spend some time with them, communicate, and try to lead them to a deeper part of themselves with a foundation where they can go, you know what? You're right. You've kind of given me some footing. I was just lost in my mind, but now I see it. Maybe I can get myself out of this situation. Nobody has come to me and been this kind. Nobody has spent time to want to talk to me or get to know me, but to share these ideas and take me serious. Like, it's not even just what you were saying. It's the fact that you did all of this to say it tells me that this does mean something. There is power in this, and you gave me hope, and I'm gonna try this. You lit a fire in me, like a natural, like spiritual fire that says, you can do this. I've been saying I can't for so long. You just took me aside, put your whole life on a pause to take me aside and say, you can do what I'm doing. We can do this together. I'm confused why you're doing this. I want to spend my money and my time taking you to the side and go, hey man, what are you doing?
Right. I mean,
That's what hits people. And it's that, and you can't get that kind of reaction from such a simple moment without something bigger, without some kind of foundation.
Right.
Because the spiritual person typically is just going to accommodate. It's going to be, oh, he needs money. I feel bad. I feel good by giving him money. And it was with my heart. So it's a good thing. Okay, well, you don't know where his heart's at. What's he going to use that money for? Don't give him money. He says he wants food. Challenge him. You want to get food? I'll take you over here. We can have lunch and talk. If you don't want that, then now I know that you want drugs. You wanted money, and I can't give you money because I don't want to enable the rotting of your soul. You know, I don't want to continue, you know, desecrating your mind with drugs. No. But if you want food, I will give you food, as Jesus did. You know, I won't just give you food. I won't just give you water. You'll be quenched. You won't need water. I will give you something that quenches your life. You know, it's like, you want food? I'll feed you.
yeah.
But I'm not just going to give you money so you can do whatever you want because I'm a good person. I'm absolved because my intentions were good. It has to be a foundation. Your highest self isn't just a version of you that ignores the bad things about you.
So yeah, on a fundamental level, having some type of foundation or a religious foundation allows the ideas to be passed on through someone other than the arbiter of the ideas. So if I tell you about God, I'm not going to explain it to you. I'm going to point you to where you can learn about it, or I'm going to tell you to go to church or whatever. But in the case of a spiritual person, it's like, you know, how do I portray my version of spirituality to you? It's like, you know, I'd have to explain it all. I'd have to show, you know, we'd have to go to Joshua Tree and trip mushrooms in the desert, and then you'll understand.
And even
You know,
then, all you understand is like, you don't fucking get anything. And it's like, welcome to my life.
But,
we don't
yeah.
fucking know what's going on, and we
Right.
love it. And you're like,
it's
oh.
Two people with two different moralities may have different interpretations of what this means. You know, doing, you know, good deeds and doing things that are kind of like righteous by yourself, that might just be self-motivated, and that affects other people, or that gets you into trouble in certain ways. And that's why a lot of these people are susceptible to, like, you know, cults and things like that, where they have no foundation, they're spiritual, they climb onto some guru-minded person who's a spiritual leader, and then they all drink Kool-Aid and kill themselves or something like that. You know, that's kind of like what that leads to. You don't have a guiding authority, and if you without that, then you're just left to yourself. And when you're just left to yourself, then you just do things that are selfish based,
Yeah.
and that leads to unforeseen consequences that you don't necessarily anticipate, but that do affect your life negatively, affect people around you, things like that. If I just did stuff, cared about myself, I wouldn't help society. There's no way to spread this idea. It would just be self-contained, and then it would be a bunch of different people self-contained, and we all have different levels of altruism, and then, you know, at some point it just, someone takes from you, so you know, like, you take back, and it just kind of devolves from there. There's no guiding foundation or
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the restaurant example I gave. You said it perfectly. You know, my job isn't to show you God. My job is to lead you to him so that you can find him and see him yourself. I can't show you him. I can't take you to him. I can just tell you where he's at and tell you where to find him. You know, God is in all of us. So if God's in all of us, and I take this man out and I do all of this stuff and I have this conversation, it's the weight behind the conversation. You didn't just sit here and stop and go, hey, you know, you should read the Bible. You stopped and you said, let me take care of your needs. Let me show you humility. Let me treat you like a real fucking person, because damn, dude, you're sitting here on the sidewalk and that makes me sad. I don't want to just look at you as some dude who's given up and has no self-respect, and he's like, just, can I have some money? No. Can I get to know you? Let's go have a conversation. There's a person in there who respects himself to some degree and has something to say, and I want to hear what he has to say. You gave up on anybody wanting to hear you. Let me take you inside. Let me stop my day and join it with yours. Let me feed you. Let me talk to you. Let me listen to you. And then I want you to hear what I have to say. And then when I say that, you're going to sit there and go, he didn't tell me like I need to follow God. He just told me that God is in me. God loves me. And I believe it because this dude genuinely seemed like he cared about me. So if this random stranger loves me and he's telling me this and he seemed at peace and nobody else cared, I want to listen to the only person who shows love to others when they're not looking for it. You know, the spiritual person didn't stop and go, let me show you love, because they don't know how to lead you to it. They found it in themselves and they don't know how to bring it out of you. They just say, you know, let me explain my entire life story and all of my ideology, and maybe you can use this. Instead, it's just, let's have a conversation. God loves you, this and that, you know, and then you end it with, you know, read the Bible. All those things that I was telling you, it's in there. It's what helps me. I think I know it would help you. You know, that's going to make somebody go, I'm going to look into this. Not because you seem happy and all this stuff. And it's the fact that you treated me like a human when I wasn't asking for it. You went out of your way. Like, who does all of these things other than somebody who's at such peace that my turmoil didn't affect their peace? They actually brought peace into my turmoil. It's like they weren't affected by me sitting out in front of their favorite restaurant, making it look bad, telling me I need to go somewhere. No, they said, hey, why don't you come in with me? It's like, I want to hear that person. You know, that's a real reflection. I'm not saying every religious person does that by any means. No, but that is what you can do with a foundation of spirituality. If you don't have it, all you can do is be like, your thoughts and your emotions. Basically, you think you're poor and you think you're a piece of shit, so you are. But if you think you're rich and you think you're amazing, you'll become rich and amazing. And this guy's like, I ate a rat for dinner last night. Like, like, I'm 42. Like, what are you saying? Dude, it's like quantum physics, man. It's quantum mechanics. You can't really, let me try to explain it. You're like, dude, like, you're not changing my life. Why? Because what I'm explaining is stuff I have picked up off of hallucination trips and hallucinatory trips, you know, weird, you know, self-help things. It's years of just like studying random stuff off of experiences I had. I can't explain to you what my experiences were that gave me the passion to look into this. But I can tell you what I figured out, and maybe it'll make you passionate. Like, no. Like, you have no foundation. You can't share your foundation. So by definition, you live your life selfish.
And that's the other thing, too. It's like a lot of these spiritual people are kind of, you know, for the most part, living their way in a way that would be in line with every other religion. You know, like, these people are essentially, you know, religious, but they reject it. They reject the idea of it. But why? Why do you do that? Because you want to be this. You want to be happy. You want to have all these things. You want to be successful. You want to have a more, you know, like a grounded understanding of reality and a successful life. It's like you believe everything but the foundation, but the tie. It's you might even believe in the idea of a higher power, but it's like, just tie it to what everyone's been telling you about.
Or at least look into it and try to figure out
it's
why.
It's rejected because it's society that's kind of, it's turning us into godless animals. It's like making us easier to be controlled.
Yes.
People are tearing us down on a fundamental spiritual level, and then it creates a spiritual vacuum, and it just gets filled with this kind of stardust stuff, which in all, you know, at face value, it's very, very similar to all the other religions that you're rejecting, but you can't bridge that gap. You can't just accept that what you're feeling and the purpose you're looking for has already been established. Instead, you reject it and you try to go find your own. Well, it's not going to end up well most of the time. I mean, maybe in a rare case, it does end up well, but at the same time, why not bridge that gap at that point? Because you're already 90% there. You know,
Well,
make your own religion.
Again, I think you
go
nailed,
start a cult.
I think you nailed it on the head earlier. You know, it's people looking for something that don't want to give up themselves.
Right.
So it's I'm not happy, but I need to change something to be happy. Oh, spirituality? You're telling me law of attraction? You're telling me is God without his laws? So I can like think about stuff and manifest stuff. I know how this world works. So if I just stay happy and focus on good things and all this stuff, then I'll be good. And it's like, but you don't have a foundation. You don't have the laws, the rules. It's like the third dimension has rules. The physical world has rules. You know, you throw something up, it falls down. There's laws to how everything works. And I don't mean laws like you have to obey them, but in the spiritual world, it's like, oh, well, not if your intentions are good. It's like you can't sit there and say the physical world clearly has lots of laws, you know, from gravity to you name it. We got laws for how this stuff works. Well, so it would only make sense that the spiritual world would also have laws. So like you were saying, it's that part of somebody who says, I'm looking for something, but I believe internally people feel that there is a way, but they don't want to accept it because they'll have to change.
Right.
So
if you quick thing,
yeah.
like these same spiritual people, they don't subscribe to this idea of good and evil, like good and evil biblically or religiously, but then they believe in karma.
But if you notice, most of the times that karma only applies to the other person because they have good intentions. So again, it's a loophole. It's I can stay positive even when you're acting like that because how you're acting will bring you karma. And it's like, how often do you say that? I say it pretty often. Well, then maybe you're the one stirring people up because I don't end a conversation thinking like something bad will happen to them for talking to me the way they did. It's like, well, people don't talk to me that way. So but
I didn't mean to derail you.
No, you're fine,
I wanted to throw that in
but it's a real thing. It's like
they reject religion but believe in karma.
Yeah, it's like
Same thing.
It's I'm afraid to give up the things that I want to do, but I know what I want to do has been making me unhappy. Okay, well, I can't keep doing what I want to do the way I've been doing it. But with spirituality, I can. I just have to change my perspective going into these things and my intentions. So if I just clean up a little bit, I can still go out, get fucked up, do drugs, drink a bunch, and get laid because I'm a good person. It's like, no, you're doing the same stuff you always do. You're just like being more honest about it. Like it's not the same thing. There's no foundation. So to sit there and say, I want to be spiritual, I'm spiritual, and that's where I have my peace. I'm going to my highest self and all this stuff. It's like, but you're doing the same stuff you've always done. You just wear a lot more hemp shit. It's like you need a foundation. So I've always thought it's weird when people are like, I had these experiences, this and that, I'm spiritual, but they never went to that next level to say, wait, there really is a structure to this reality. Like there's an algorithm. Like this stuff is actually held together by a design, like an almost calculatable design. Like it's all math. It's all math. Like that's crazy. So if that's true, then that means I can influence things. Law of attraction, which I'm a hippie spiritualist, so I believe law of attraction, that my thoughts and emotions manifest stuff in this reality and all these things. Wow, a lot of religions, every religion talks about that. But I'm not going to look at any of the building blocks that say this is how it works and here's the laws for this other world we can't see. No. I think those laws, if anything, hold you back because they say I can't do the stuff I want to do. And that's really what it comes down to. I think you nailed it on the head. You know, it's people looking for something that don't want to give themselves up, that don't really want to change, but need a change. So it's a way to kind of justify and rectify like your mindset. You know, it's like, okay, I'm still going to do the same stuff, but I go into it differently. So therefore, everything's changed.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that's actually more damaging because then you're limiting your understanding of what's really going on outside of you. And that's where you can create problems of people targeting you. Like you said, it makes you easier to manipulate, easier to control. You know, those type of people typically end up in really bad relationships because they're like, well, it's just the feeling and this and that and blah, blah. That's lust. It's talked about as a bad thing. You have no foundation in your relationship other than lust. If you read the book, you know, it's like, you don't have to agree. You don't have to this. You don't have to that. You just have to question, does this make sense? And, you know, it's like if I read a whole book explaining gravity, by the end of the book, I have the right to say, like, I disagree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, part of me is like, it makes sense. You know, if I throw something up, it does come down. You know, so it's like there is part of you that's like, I can't say this isn't true because it's all the stuff I believe, and it's actually a lot more specific. I told people when, because I was spiritual and then became religious, following Jesus. And when I went to Jesus and I went to the Bible and I started reading it, I was like, this, I feel stupid. I was like, I thought I was so smart. Like I was the spiritual person that figured out how the universe worked. This book literally is in more detail explains my experiences, how all the, like, this is more detailed version of what I thought I was a genius at. And people have been reading this for thousands of years. Damn. Like it just hit me. Like I'm selfish as fuck. Like I think this high of myself, and only because I wasn't willing to see how high I could go, because I was afraid of what I'd have to give up in order to cross that threshold, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like I feel like I derailed you a little bit, but I think you came back to the idea, or when I interrupted with the karma thing, and what I was really getting at was what you were saying kind of about the law of attraction, where it's like these spiritual people will believe in, you know, like, oh, what I think becomes things. Like, think positive, you get positive. Think negative, you get negative. It's like, and there's this whole religious backing of good and evil, and, you know, don't
all
do,
sourced around the same thing.
But it's like, I'll reject that, but I believe in karma, and it's like all these things. It's like, well, it's really the same thing, and kind of what you were saying too. Like, you know, I went through my own point of almost agnosticism, atheism wrapped into kind of some weird package, and some spirituality.
I was a hardcore atheist, then hardcore spiritual. I got the full dose of each thing I've gone through.
Right.
You know?
And like, I think
there's a small transition, but where it's like I'm both, but like the majority is like atheist, spiritual. You know, it's like there's just that little window where you're like, I'm gonna start wearing hemp.
Well, I mean, I kind of like went through it in a different way too, where it's like I was very kind of almost science minded and kind of rejected the idea for a long time of a higher power or something like that. At the core, I think I kind of believed it, but on a surface level, I think it kind of eroded. And then, like, actually, I kind of, as I dove deeper into those kind of things, and then added kind of religious context to that, it didn't unravel those things or didn't conflict. It actually strengthened them. And I think now I'm more religious than ever, and I haven't lost any of the science backing to that. And now I see the spiritual world in science and in the physical reality, and it's a beautiful thing. Like you were saying, it's like it's all mathematics. It's like, how can such a complex universe and physical existence be summed up by E equals mc squared? Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. It's like, that's such a simple formula to explain the vast complexities of the universe. it's perfect. It's everything's so complex, but it can be summed up in these such fundamental,
These crossroads
like, relationships.
where everything
And
intersects at one point, and it's
right.
like this.
And it's like, then you dive deeper, and it's like gravity is mass, this mass minus the distance between this mass squared, and it's like, that starts to add to energy, and then it all kind of works together, and it's like, wow, it all really is so simple, even though it is complex. And there's something that kind of gets triggered in your brain when you dive into that stuff, where it's like, wow, this is
weirdly familiar.
This is like there's a purpose here. There's a design. This isn't just random, a random string of numbers.
It's like a computer game where you're like, wait, there's coding where if I do this, this happens. And you start to realize, like, oh, this, even if you take the idea of a creator out, there's no argument that there's not a design to this planet.
Yeah.
If I take a seed, put it in dirt, and put water, it grows. And the leaves and everything have geometric patterns that are all the same and displayed everywhere through the same stuff over and over and over.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, maybe we put that creator back in.
And there's a reason why our atoms are spheres, and our planets are spheres, our eyes are spheres, everything's frickin' spheres up the chain. It's like, yeah, there's something that strings it all together.
The tree of life, like sacred geometry.
Exactly. Sacred geometry, things like that. And those are things that spiritual people will grasp the concept of and be really into. But what does it all mean? How does that teach you the connectedness of life? And at the same time, you reject these religions that are basically saying the same thing.
And that's what really bugs me with a lot of the spiritual crowd, is the rejection of anything that could be the next step. Or
it's lasted for 2,000 years.
Yeah, it's like when I had my first weird experience, I had nothing but questions, and that's what leads to answers, is questions. So when I had my experiences, I was like, I need answers for this. The law of attraction, it's like thoughts, emotions, manifestation, like the way it was broken down, all that, I was like, no, this actually makes sense. And I can see a lot of times in my life where the best things that were happening to me consistently was in the best times, best days of my life, where it's like, I was genuinely happy. I wasn't like bombarded with like views of myself or like anything existential. It was just all like right there in the moment, enjoying what I felt was a blessing. You're around family, you have this, all these things are coming up. You just have this feeling of blessed and humility where you're like, I don't want to brag about this because I there's this feeling of I don't want to lose this. Like, I just want to love it. Like, I got this. I finally feel like I'm doing something. What bothers me is with a lot of the spiritual crowd, they can look at the law of attraction and they'll say, it's just your thoughts, your emotions manifest things and this and that. And I'm like, but the Bible, for example, says, if you give up yourself and go to God, he'll make you wealthy and bless you in every way. And the way it's described is as a spectrum, essentially. It's every area of your life. Health, money, happiness, or joy, all these different things surround you. You become well-rounded. So instead of like, I finally became a millionaire, but I'm still single, I'm still unhappy, I'm sick, it's like, yeah, you got your one thing. What the Bible says is, yes, you can use the law of attraction and get what you want. But if you give up the stuff you want, you'll get everything you want all at once. It's like, well, what does that mean mathematically? What kind of sense? Like, I reject. It's like, no, hold on. You're the spiritual one saying that there's all this stuff and that manifestation. You're the one saying that there's an algorithm that you can control it and create your own world. You're the one saying this. It's like, what I'm saying is your focus and attention and emotion to things can create things. What I'm saying is there's so much of you still poisoned that's all you can pull off. Now, if you give yourself up, you will get that times 10 plus everything else you're lacking, and you'll influence people in a good way while doing it. Like, it's like, okay, you Jesus freak. And you're like, what are we saying that's different other than the equation that if you give up all of the parts of you that you know deep down are toxic traits, then things get better? Doesn't it make sense that if the law of attraction says that your thoughts and your emotions manifest? So if you're always unhappy, you get more of the things you're unhappy about. And if you're always happy, you get more of the things you're happy about. So if you get rid of all of the parts of you that make you judge people, that make you change your perspective, and you might be like, I'm still happy even if I'm looking at that guy like he's an idiot. It's like, yeah, but you're not feeling the emotion that you are feeling. You're just not acknowledging it. And it's that little slight, that like, I compare it to like a splinter. It's like it didn't mess your day up, but for a second you're like, ooh, something happened. You know, and it's like when you judge that person, you get that shooting kind of pain where you're like, to your emotion. And then you can recover quick and be like, everything's fine. But like, I like to acknowledge that and be like, there's a reason I felt that way. These thoughts are not conducive to my goals. Yeah. And I think that's really what it comes down to is it's like your thoughts and your emotions manifest things, but what if you don't have full control over your thoughts? Well, it's like what in the sense that if you want to be well-rounded and bring everything in, you have to be the kind of person who, you know, when you see that guy on the sidewalk, you actually want to help him, you know, and most people think, well, that's crazy. Well, I thought you were the spiritualist, you know? It's like, is it really that crazy to look at somebody and have a genuine reaction of empathy, sadness, and a yearning to help? It's like, without just giving them money, but actively trying to help them by taking them aside and being that person. It's like, you don't become the person who's willing to do that and sees that and is sparked to do that unless you've given up the parts of you that say, well, I'm getting picked up in a half hour to go to Coachella. I don't have time to actually take them to a restaurant. Here's $20. It's like, that's spiritual, but there's some parts of you need to get rid of to take that guy more serious than Drug Fest. Right. You know, it's like, that's a human being, you spiritual piece of shit. You know, if you love people and you're all about love and you're all about all this stuff, it's like, where's your attention to people who are hurting if you're all about love?
Well, it reminds me of, I'll call it the Lamborghini paradox. And I'll bring this into, this is more of a me and you thing where, you know, this has become a running joke, even on this podcast, where when we first started watching The Secret, it's like, oh, we want to manifest a Lamborghini in my living room. You know, it's like, oh, and you're like, you know, I thought about that years later, and I'm like, okay, that's like the very surface level way to apply manifestation. And it's like, theoretically, tomorrow I could do that. I could go out, I could, you know, if I don't have enough money in my bank account, I could get a personal loan. I could go rent a Lamborghini for the day, and I could, you know, somehow park it into my living room or something like that. Well, like theoretically, it could happen, but it's like, you realize that's not actually what you want. And I think that's, you know, you don't want the car. You don't want the flashy thing. You want to be a successful person. You want to be a person who can
the underlying issue that causes the car want.
You know, it's like the only reason why you would ever buy that car is because you've already satisfied all of your basic needs and you're a successful person, and there's nothing else that you could want to spend your money on.
Yeah, most people, when they think about the Lambo, they don't think about like, I already have a house with a three-car garage, a really nice kitchen, and it's like Lamborghini. It's like, dude, you live in an apartment. Where like you can't just focus on a Lamborghini because, again, it's success. And if the Lamborghini you want is associated with success, do you think you would view yourself as successful pulling up to your apartment in a Lamborghini? Right. Or do you need a half-mile-long driveway with a turnaround at the front entrance and a three-car garage with, you know, full of muscle cars? Right. Like, are you picturing the full picture, or
yes?
And that's why
when you break it down, you don't realize you don't really want the Lamborghini. You want your life to be successful. You want everything else to be able to have that, and that's what the manifestor consciousness forgets. That's where the spiritual person will become short-sighted, where they want what they want, and they think that they can get what they want and manifest it, at sometimes to the detriment of others even. But that's not really what you want. That's not going to bring you what you need.
Yeah, and that was it's kind of a big thing with The Secret too, is you can put your attention to all the stuff you want. But at the end of the day, we all know stuff doesn't make you happy. It's aspects of yourself you're unhappy with that make you unhappy. It's your past of what you've done that makes you unhappy. It's all these different circumstances in your life that, controllable or uncontrollable, are either your fault or you didn't properly handle it. It's you feel like you're inadequate to handle what life deals you. So what makes that better? Well, if I had a Lamborghini and all this stuff, then it wouldn't matter what I go through, because everybody would still look at me with status and et cetera, et cetera. Which we know is not true. You pull up in a Lamborghini and everybody just hates you. They're like, right. You didn't help me come up. You just got a Lambo? Like, I don't fucking care. Like, why would you get a green one? That's so stupid. It's like, it's just hate for no reason. But the person who brings everybody up with them, and that's kind of what I got from the law of attraction, is it's thoughts and emotions. What you focus on, things will align for you. So if I focus on a Lamborghini, yeah, I could get a Lamborghini, and I might even be able to do it tomorrow if I'm that sure of it to the point where I know it.
Right.
Then it will happen. And I could never settle on something. It was always like, okay, well, if I'm going to go all in, I need something that I can go all in on. And it is like the Lamborghini. I was like, I can't. Like, it's not in me. Like, all of my focus for this will not fix everything. If I used all my energy to try to do something, that could create more problems. I don't want to be in a situation where I get a Lambo and then it's like, where do I keep it? My house. The one thing my house doesn't have is a garage.
I need to lower my driveway because I scrape every time.
Yeah, I can't afford the personal property tax on this thing. It's like there's so many issues to the point where it's like what you need is a solution. So it'd be like, like win the lottery or something. But it's like the odds themselves make it hard to grasp and believe. And it finally hit me. It's like, this is kind of what led me to start to investigate religion, was that hit where I was like, I think this is what I heard about when I was a kid, which is like, if I give up my wants and who I am and all the stuff I want to follow, which clearly I don't know what I want because I can't settle on something to manifest. I was like, I do remember as a kid, hearing through the Bible that, like, if I give this stuff up, that God just gives me everything. And it always sounded like an assumption of, like, I know what you want and I know what you need. And I'm going to give it to you in abundance, in every way well-rounded. So you're going to be healthy, you're going to be wealthy, you're going to have all this stuff, good family, good connections, all this good stuff. And then I realized, well, that's what I want. I want to be well-rounded. I want to be respected. I want to be joyful. I want to help others. I want to be the kind of person who can do those things. I don't want to be the kind of person who needs a Lambo to look like he's successful. I want to be the kind of person who could have nothing and everybody flocks to him and they're like, dude, this guy spits wisdom, helps me. He lives a modest life, but I was going through stuff and he helped me with $3,000, got me out of this jam, saved my life, invested in me when my family wouldn't. And because he could tell I needed this. And now I'm a millionaire and I helped him out, but he was like, no, I'm good. It's like, what? How, you got me again. What do you mean you're good? I'm a millionaire. Here's your $3,000 back. No, I'm good. It was money well spent. Don't say that. What? How can you be okay with that? Because I'm well-rounded. I'm joyful. Like, I got what I need, man. And I gave you what you needed. I recovered after that $3,000. I got my money back. I don't need it now. I'm good. I got more than I need. You take that $3,000 and you invest it in somebody else you think needs it. That's somebody who...
Mind blown.
It's like you can't achieve stuff like that with The Secret.
Yeah.
You can't. You don't get that level of well-roundedness, the humility, the connection in your heart to want to help others. Not just the telling yourself you want to help others, but that feeling of you need to. Like, you don't get that stuff from yourself. You don't, and that's where a higher power comes in. And that's where, again, seek and you will find. It's like, if you want to use the law of attraction to get a Lambo, you definitely can. But if you want to use the law of attraction to build yourself into your real highest power, the real highest version of yourself, you got to seek a higher version than yourself. And to me, that in itself is proof of God.
Cheers to that, man. Honestly, I feel like we should just end on that. That was really well said.
Thank you. I'm about it.
Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you are joining for the first time, please give the channel a like and a subscribe. And if you're watching this in post, please leave a comment. Let us know what you think. We'll respond to it on our YouTube channel, Meta Perspective Podcast. And we're streaming on Tuesday tonight, but normally we stream every Wednesday. Join us around 8:30 or so Central. And we'll catch you next time.
Until then, Meta Perspective out.
Meta Perspective Podcast.